Hey everybody, welcome to Reddit Roast number 46. Mal, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Sam.
So, for those who are familiar with Reddit Roasts, you will know that we pick apart people's profiles that they submit on the RMBA Reddit channel. And basically, people are looking for a bit of reassurance as to whether or not they're applying to the right schools. Maybe they have a gap in their profile that they're looking to fill. And so we go into detail about all of those and hopefully give some people a bit more confidence going into the MBA applications. Round three or round one next year is probably is what most people are looking at right now. So, Mal, who have we got today?
So today we have a part-time MBA applicant with spare time interests in music and
Okay.
martial arts. We've got an applicant with a low GPA who's looking for a 75% scholarship. Ooh. We've also got someone with a 735 GMAT focus edition who feels like he's holding a winning lottery ticket that expires in 5 years.
735. Wow.
And we have our very first resume roast. We're going to be roasting a resume. And you might want to stick around for our bonus discussion on all the LinkedIn theatrics that MBAs are notorious
I'm
for.
pleased to announce that.
Yes.
Awful. Okay, let's dive in then. First profile is here. Do you want to run through it?
Yes, let's do that. Profile one, I'm applying to a couple of part-time MBA programs and would appreciate any feedback. 26 male ORM, GPA 3.62 in chemical engineering and chemistry from a public Ivy, some undergraduate teaching assistant experience, some research experience, GRE 333 with a 170 quant and a 163 verbal, work
Nice.
experience. 4 years of work ex at a multinational manufacturing conglomerate, have had one formal title change and been on several high priority projects. Previously was a program manager for an early career talent development program, graduating around 30 people. Strong LORs also,
Mhm.
extracurriculars, volunteer experience at a local food pantry and with a few non-profits. Been doing music my whole life, play the drums, piano, acoustic guitar, and music theory. Coach for collegiate boxing club and captain of the competition team. Still train and compete in Muay Thai and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think that's what that is at local
Yeah.
competitions. And I've been very active with on-campus recruiting, board member for the university. Not sure what that is.
Not sure what that is
Chapter.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Post MBA goals, my post MBA goals are to continue within my current company, move into project portfolio management, and become a team leader within my PMO. I'd also like to formally take over talent development. Long term goals are to become a PMO director and lead the North American portfolio of projects. Dream schools, Kellogg and Booth, also applying to Ross, Haas, Scheller, Kelly, and Anderson, all part time. I'd also
Ooh.
appreciate any insight into scholarships. We'll get to that. What do you think overall of this profile, Sam?
Yeah. Let's start academically then. So the 3.62 is bang on the average GPA of the top the top programs. So that's a really good start. And the GRE of 333 is outstanding. That's a perfect quant score there. Wow. So really, really good stats academically for sure. So professional. Um, 4 years of experience at a multinational manufacturing conglomerate supporting large capital projects, mega projects as a project engineer. Little bit dry. It's not a particularly sexy or cutting edge industry that OP is working in, but it's not bad at all. And certainly the LORs backing that up from current managers and mentor and supervisor. Really, that's really really nice. Um, so work experience solid, but not shooting the lights out. I don't think. Extracurriculars. I mean, he's certainly got a lot going on, right? Between playing the guitar and beating people up, there's a lot happening here.
Yeah.
But what I'm interested in is stuff that is sort of formal, right? It's extracurriculars that are formal leadership experience, where you have a title that you can put it on your resume. Those maybe not quite so much of. For example, this board member of the university chapter, I I can't quite tell if that's ongoing or not. If that's still something that OP is involved in, having graduated, that's nice. That is sort of formal semi-professional leadership experience, that's really, really nice. There might be some stories of leadership from coaching in the boxing club, but it's not quite as value add as like the white collar leadership experience down here. So all in all, extracurriculars I think are strong, but just need to be framed the right way to have maximum impact. Goals. Now, going back to the same company, basically, which makes a lot of sense for part-time MBA applicants. Relatively rare for full-time MBA applicants to go back to the current company, right? Because while you're studying full-time, you can't work, so you kind of need a return offer, and that's a bit unusual. But here, we're a part-time program, such as an evening and weekend program. Companies are generally on board, and you have a career trajectory going back to the current company. That makes total sense. I might like a slightly more ambitious long-term goal. Basically, what I gather here is that this long-term goal is just a continuation of like, I'll stay at the company, I'll do well, I'll get promoted, and there's not much changing going on there. I'd like to use that long-term goal as a way to sort of signpost OP's values. Maybe something like an industry leadership position or maybe an entrepreneurial type role would be a bit more punchy for a long-term goal. But broadly, the goals are solid. Overall, then, very solid profile. Reminds me quite a lot of I recorded a video on our YouTube channel recently, about a year ago, of somebody doing the part-time program at Booth with an engineering background, stayed at their company, etc. We'll put a link to that in the comments at the bottom. But yeah, broadly a strong profile, particularly for part-time programs.
All right. And what do you think about those target schools? What are OP's chances?
So I'm slightly unclear on what OP is aiming to do kind of lifestyle wise, because on the one hand, he's got the Chicago schools, which makes sense, especially if his work is near Chicago and he's living there, fine. But he's also talking about Haas, for example, which is obviously crossing California. So that doesn't quite make sense for a part-time program. But generally, like logistics aside, very good alignment in terms of profile and schools. To be honest, I would even go as far as saying that if OP wanted to apply to the full-time programs at these schools, the M7s, the Kellogg's, the Booths, have a strong chance at those as well. So yeah, definitely on track for those schools.
Okay. And is there anything that OP would need to do to make their, chances better for these schools?
Yeah, I think I come back to those extracurriculars. I think being able to formalize these and turn these into, give yourself a title, for example. It looks to me like the only one of these that has a title is that board member of the university's chapter. I guess that's something to do with, my guess is that chair is chemical engineering. So I think it's the chemical engineering professional.
I Googled it. It's the global home of chemical engineers.
Okay, there you go. So that makes sense. So as far as I can see, this is the only extracurricular that has a formal title attached to it. I'd like the other stuff to have as much of a formal title as possible. I'm just spitballing here, but if he's got a band, plays drums in a band, that band should have a website that he can link to on his resume and make it more, formalize this. Likewise, the boxing club, does that have a website? If so, are you listed on it? Do you have a profile on it, for example? Like trying to formalize this extracurricular work as opposed to just saying, I'm at a boxing club and just hoping they believe you. You know what I mean? So that's on the extracurricular front. The other thing that OP can do is I noticed this line around mentorship and talent development in current role here. Have mentored a bunch of engineers and interns. Make sure that this gets adequate recognition on the resume, maybe even an essay, a leadership essay about it. For example, Kellogg's essay 2, I believe, is a difficult decision. Maybe focus that difficult decision around a talent development program. Give this its due. This is really, really nice and probably what stands out about OP's profile in a professional sense. Make sure you've got a line on the resume about this. Make sure you're writing an essay about this if you can. I would say really, really lean into that development, that mentorship piece from a narrative standpoint. That's probably the most interesting thing I can see going on here. So those are my 2 pieces of advice. Formalize the mentorship as much as possible and formalize the extracurriculars as much as possible. But as far as GRE and academics and work and LORs those are all clear. Those are all in the bag already.
Okay, and coming back to OP's question about scholarships, OP says that I know scholarships are few and far between for part-time programs, but if you have any advice about that. That's welcoming.
Yeah. So these programs tend to have more merit-based scholarships than, for example, diversity-based scholarships. So that's the first thing. There's a distinction between those, and you can look up what merit-based scholarships involve. But basically, with this GRE score, particularly the quant GRE score, OP is definitely qualified for a merit-based scholarship. So that's really, really good. What I would say though is that they're not likely to just give you this big scholarship on a platter. It's going to be really important for OP to get multiple offers so that he can negotiate, particularly between Kellogg and Booth. We know from experience across full-time programs, part-time programs, whatever, that those schools are in direct competition with each other and do tend to negotiate, well. So for example, in the last round, in round 2, we had a full-time applicant get a 50 grand increase in his Booth scholarship to match the Kellogg scholarship. So in other words, he went back to Booth and said, look, Kellogg have offered me 50 grand more. What are you going to do? And Booth matched it. So we know that those schools compete. So that's the big thing here is to get multiple admits and then be able to negotiate from a position of strength. That's the other big thing. Industry-focused scholarships. So as well as being merit-based, scholarships tend to be industry-based. So, for example, you have lots and lots of veteran scholarships. You've got lots of social impact scholarships. It would be really good if OP can dig out some engineering-focused ones. I don't know off the top of my head if these schools and these programs have dedicated industrial sort of engineering scholarships. You might have to dig a bit further, a bit more to find those. But they do tend to be industry-focused, and that will be a factor. And then the only other thing that I had noted down was that it will also vary by school. Historically, as I mentioned, Kellogg and Booth tend to be quite open to negotiating. Haas, a little bit less so. They have a reputation for being a little bit less open to negotiations and a little bit tighter on scholarships as well. So this will vary. So basically, play a numbers game here. Get as many of those applications in as possible. The more apps you get in, the more offers you'll get. The more offers you get, the more you can negotiate. The more you can negotiate, the more scholarships you'll get. So that should be OP's plan.
Okay. Great. I think that's all for OP.
Good.
Are we ready for our next profile?
Good. And yeah, OP, we'll put a link to that video interview with the Kellogg, with the Booth part-time MBA grad that I interviewed a while ago. We'll put that in the comments. Okay, good. Let's get on to the next profile then.
All right. Profile 2. Low GPA or years of experience redemption arc for T15 scholarship. Gearing up for round 1 applications this fall in 2027, and wants a candid review of the profile demographics: 27 male Indian citizen with a Canadian PR, undergrad BBA in finance and MIS from a top 10 business school in Canada, CGPA 2.98 out of 4.33. I think that's a university specific. OP's converted that to a 2.75 out of a 4, but I also see an upwards trend there with a 3.33 in the finance major and a final year GPA of 3.67 out of 4.33. So GMAT focus not taken yet. Credentials: OP has passed CFA levels 1 and 2, will be sitting for level 3 in August. Work experience: 3 years at matriculation at a leading market intelligence fintech firm, hired as an associate, promoted within a year. Operations-based role, heavy on data. Recommendation: strong letters of recommendation. Career goals: short-term, pivot to buy-side equity research in the US. Long-term, portfolio manager. Why an MBA? Deep interest in portfolio management. My goal is to attend T15, where I can get hands-on experience by joining the school's investment fund, like Cornell's Cayuga Fund or Michigan's Maize and Blue Fund, and target schools 75% plus scholarship to minimize debt. OP is really focused on that. Primary targets: Cornell, NYU, and Duke, and reach is Columbia and Booth. I see questions, those later. What do you think for the first time?
Yeah, overall, we see this the queries, the concerns that OP has are very common, happen again and again. So no kind of unusuals there, but let's go through them. So the first one then is in terms of academic. Yeah, look, weak GPA for sure. If it is a 2.75 out of 4, that is not ideal. We'll talk about how to mitigate that, etc. To some extent, the redemption arc, as he calls it, helps. But there's no getting around it. That's going to be weak and needs to be tackled. We don't have a GMAT yet. I mean, I'm not surprised he's targeting those scores. Everyone's targeting a 735 if they can, but that's exceptionally high. Currently scoring these on the mocks, I would say that as a rule of thumb, take your mock score and deduct 30 is where you're going to end up. So it might end up in the high 600s, which is solid, but it's not outstanding. We'll see on that one. The CFA program helps, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. In terms of then the professional, the work experience side, a nice little niche here in this work, data focused, working on a company's core AI platform, analyzing financial statements, standardizing data, which obviously links to the goals, which are pivot to equity research in the US, which is what, a lot of that work is basically analyzing data out of financial statements. So I can see where those goals come from. There is a logical career journey here. That does make sense. No extracurriculars as far as I can see. Is that a big gap? Maybe. That might be a concern. If it's round one OP's applying, then there is time to mitigate that a bit, but it could be a gap. A little bit wary on that. The other thing I want to comment on these goals, it makes sense logically that OP would want to go from like a platform that builds and analyzes data to an equity research role. But I would really encourage OP to have, what will matter here is whether he's got his own in, whether he already has like connections in the equity research space, hiring managers that he's familiar with, who are maybe his clients, for example, in his current role. Having his own in will make a big difference here. So I'm not sure whether that's the case. It's not mentioned, but would be a big difference. So basically, OP is at a point where he's like, I think OP is at a point where he's like, I need to decide whether to really get stuck in. Oh, mind you, he's taking the mocks already. So it sounds like he's committed. But I would say overall, a potentially okay profile, depending on how that GMAT comes in. Let's dig into the questions and I'll be able to expand on that a bit.
All right. So OP's first question is the low GPA an automatic deal breaker? And how much can a 715 plus GMAT and the full CFA charter realistically offset that for T15?
Yeah. Look, we're getting into the sort of the nuances of this. There isn't a particular school that will just be like, that, has like a policy of, we don't care so much about your GPA. Like, it's not really like that. All the schools are trying to game the rankings, and the GPA is a big factor in the rankings. And they're trying to fill their class with intelligent people and not accidentally bring somebody in who's going to struggle academically. And obviously the GPA would be a sign of that. So in those two criteria, for the second part, for the intelligence test, I don't think OP is going to struggle. They're not going to look at him and think that he can't handle the academics. Working with data in his current role, has the CFA parts 1 and 2, and hopefully part 3 by the time of the program. I don't think they're going to look at him and think academically he can't handle the course. But they are going to look at him and think, this candidate, if we let him in, is going to bring down our GPA average, and that is going to impact us in the rankings. So how to mitigate that? There's no individual schools that are always open to low GPA people. But depending on who they've brought in their round 1 and round 2, actually, no, I think OP is focusing on round 1 next year. Mm-hmm. So let me reframe that. If they happen to get loads and loads of people who've got really high GPAs applying in round 1 next year, they might be willing to look past 1 low GPA. You don't know whether that's going to be the case. And it could change by school. It could change by round. There's no way of forecasting that. So
I think OP is applying round 1 this year for next year, for fall next year.
Round 1, 2026. So that's this coming September.
Yeah.
So there's no way of knowing what GPAs your peers are going to have. I would say the only thing you can really do to mitigate this, have a high GMAT. OP is obviously on that case already. And B, maximize the number of schools you apply to maximize the chances that in round one, they just so happen to have loads of high GPA people.
Okay.
All you can really do. A bit of a convoluted answer, but I hope I've put some color on this part of the dilemma.
Yeah, yeah. OP's next question is about the years of work experience. Is 3 years too low as an ORM? OP is concerned that the lower years of experience will be a major disadvantage, even with the stats and the promotion. What do you think?
Short answer's no. Short answer's no. Your GPA is your issue, not your years of work experience. The average of these schools is some 4.5, somewhere around there. So for you coming in at 3, all they need to do to offset that is have somebody with 5.5, and they get heaps of people applying with 5.5 years of work experience. So no issue there. I really don't think the work experience is going to be an issue, chiefly because when the cases where low work experience is an issue is people that haven't really done very much. For example, they haven't been there long enough to prove they're good and get promoted. They haven't been there long enough to get good recommenders. But it looks like in both of these cases, OP is fine. So I'm not worried about the years of work experience at all. That's not my concern here. I think it's much more the GPA and handling that.
Okay. Third question, how realistic is that 75% plus scholarship, or is this a pipe dream with OP's profile?
It's not very realistic is the answer. The OP is not a typical candidate for scholarships, full stop. So not a particularly underrepresented demographic, so it doesn't qualify for the kind of the diversity focused scholarships. Not a particularly high GPA, in fact, a very low GPA, so not going to qualify for the merit-based scholarships either. OP, to be honest with you, I think if you're going to apply to business school, I think you need to do it on the basis that you're probably not going to get any scholarship. If you get some, that's a bonus. But you need to be ready to take on to borrow this money, particularly at the reach schools. These, you're not going to get a 75% scholarship. You're just not going to get a 75% scholarship from Booth or Columbia. The end.
Okay. And OP's last question, any blind spots? Are there any other schools that I should be considering that are known to be friendly to redemption profiles and have strong student-run funds?
Yeah. The short answer is no. The only thing you can do here is play the numbers game and hope that in a given round, a given school is going to look past your GPA. You can't forecast that. You can't predict who that's going to be. All you can do is play the numbers game to maximize your chances of that happening. And the list of the schools that have funds is a very easy search. Ask ChatGPT which one has funds. It'll come up. I think you've caught the main ones. I think more important is to focus on the schools that have good pipelines into finance. The ones that jump to mind are, as OP, I think OP has basically done that. Wouldn't put Duke in that bucket quite comfortably. I had an interesting conversation with a client the other day who told me that UNC Keenan Flagler put more people into investment banking than Duke did last year. So I wouldn't put Duke in this bucket, but otherwise OP has definitely captured the IB friendly schools. And these are definitely the ones that professionally align best with his profile. Cornell's like a 4-hour bus ride from New York, but they have very good pipeline into IB. NYU Stern is obviously right in the middle of New York City. Ditto Columbia. Booth, because Chicago is a finance hub as well. So the OP is already on it in terms of schools. And I wouldn't say there's much in the way of blind spots there at all, no.
Okay. That's all of OP's questions then, Sam. Thank you.
Okay, let's do it. Good luck, sir. Good luck.
Good luck.
Okay, next profile.
Next profile. Am I being blinded by the GMAT score? I need a reality check. I'm a 23-year-old male, international, mainland China passport, first-gen college student, LGBTQ, currently working as a finance manager at a global tech MNC with rotations in Germany and Korea. Recently scored a 735 on the GMAT. Amazing. Before the score, I was content grinding up the corporate ladder, but now this feels like holding a winning lottery ticket that expires in 5 years. I feel immense pressure to use it or lose it to pivot into high finance. Profile 3735 GMAT, we covered that. 2 years of work experience. At the moment will be 4 by matriculation. My current role is heavily controller focused, which I'm good at, but I find it intellectually limiting. Goal,
Yeah.
pivot from back office to front office, which is IB or strategy, to secure a green card. Okay. Is it reckless to uproot this career to chase an MBA just because I test well? We'll answer that, OP. Generally, what's your take on OP's profile?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, academic wise, that's Focus Edition 735 is absolutely astounding. 100th percentile. So, like, to put into perspective the profile before, right? So he's taking the GMAT and targeting 735 plus. Okay. This is, 735 is 100th percentile. Like, that's astonishingly high. We don't have a GPA, I don't think, do we?
No, I
Don't
don't.
think we have a GPA, but I imagine it's not bad. If it sounds like OP is pretty damn smart. So I think academically, definitely very strong. Demographic is interesting. Fewer mainland Chinese applicants to US MBA programs at the moment because of visa things, etc. I think, and also, so first gen college is also big positive from a demographic perspective. LGBTQ plus is obviously a positive in terms of the perspective that OP brings, has international experience as well. So overall, demographic wise, big plus, there. Professional, 4 years of work experience will be bang on the average of the schools at matriculation. So I think it looks like OP is aiming to apply in 2027 to matriculate in 2028. So like a year or so away, and is getting ahead of the curve, which makes total sense. Now, professional. This is a very unsexy line of work in MBA world. So a bit of context. I worked in investment banking. For those watching who aren't aware, I worked in investment banking. I worked at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and I worked at SocGen, both cases on the trading floor, trading equity derivatives, a few other products. And so this kind of front office high finance is exactly what I was doing in my work before I was an admissions consultant. And this is really not a sexy job for MBA admissions. And we can sort of talk about how to frame that. But I'm not particularly excited by that. And I don't think the schools will be either. The bonus would be if OP can point to a few promotions, etc. That'll be helpful. But basically, I think academically strong, professionally not so strong is sort of my take on this profile. Demographically strong. Yeah, let's talk about the goals in a bit, but I think that's the overall summary. Academically strong, professionally weak, demographically strong.
Okay. And OP's question is it reckless to uproot a stable, decent paying career to chase an MBA just because I test well? Or is this score a legitimate once in a lifetime leverage for someone with my background to break into a tier I could not access otherwise?
The latter, the latter. As I say, when I worked in IB, I saw so many talented people grinding out boring work in back office roles, really boring work in back office roles. And I would absolutely advise anybody working in back office M&A, back office trading floor work at an investment bank, doing, KYC stuff, all this really boring background work, to use an MBA to pivot into front office. And that is, OP is a perfect example of that, has a great GMAT score, really, really would be good. Now, whether OP will be able to break into an M7 role from a back office, not very sexy job, not sure. But as we just talked about, Cornell, for example, would be on the cards and would give OP a route into front office IB if he plays his cards right. So, yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah. All right.
One
OP's
other point on that,
other.
actually. One other point on that. So there is also what's known as a middle office. For those who aren't familiar, we've got investment banks have back office, which is really like in the back of the office. Literally, it's like it's KYC stuff. It's even things like IT systems. The mail room, like all of those sorts of things are considered back office, and that's the least sexy. Front office is considered the most sexy. That's the client-facing staff, building models, etc. But you also have a middle office who are
Mm-hmm.
kind of halfway in between, so to speak, and they are typically kind of supporting the traders, supporting the investment bankers, doing things like trade settlement, for example. And I would encourage OP to think about maybe using that as a stepping stone to front office. I mean, it's already more interesting than back office work. So it would be a result in and of itself. But also, it might be that OP needs to frame that as the stepping stone to getting into a front office role, because it's quite a big pivot otherwise. Um, Anyway, OP, we can talk about it more if you'd like to. If you're looking at hiring missions consultant, we might be able to go into this kind of detail. But yeah, I want to add that in. Just think about middle office as like a stepping stone in your essays, for example.
And what do you think of OP's comment about I want to secure a green card?
Oh yeah, whatever you do, don't mention that in your application essays. Do not mention it. Why? Schools, spend a lot of time and effort and money building a great curriculum that are really going to be value add for people's careers, teach them interesting stuff. The last thing they want is to think that they're being used as a visa, a tool to get a visa. Really worst look you could present. So definitely do not kind of even touch on that tone during your application. Really focus on the professional growth.
Mm-hmm. And I saw another question in the comments. It's not in the main post. It's
Mm-hmm.
about the brand. Does the M7 brand matter significantly for long-term career progression, or is the exit ops difference negligible after the first job?
So the the short answer, or short answer is that he's more or less right,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Like the brand of the school and will help most with the short term goal. Longer term, it's not so much the brand or the career center that helps; it's the
Mm-hmm.
network that you can lean on. The best example of this is Wharton, one of the biggest programs, 800 plus students for multiple years. They've been running for 30 whatever years. You've got a massive network of alumni that you can lean on. If you send a cold message to the founder of a startup saying, hey, I'm a Wharton grad, you're a Wharton grad, I'm looking for roles or projects, can we connect? That will help you throughout your career.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of it's not that the school brand becomes less valuable. It's that you leverage it in slightly different ways as time progresses. Um, but yeah, I'm not going to push back on that. Brand is important.
Yeah. All right. Okay. That's our three profiles. Are we ready for our unique profile four?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Now this one is a resume, a bit different from what we've been
We
doing
don't
before.
normally do this, do we?
Yeah, we don't. This is our first one. I'm just going to read through the post and some of the comments as well to give context. Hey, everyone. I'm currently looking at applying to a few T15 MBA programs. I'm transitioning out of the military within the next 3 months, open to hard criticism on my resume. Any and all advice is welcome. And for those wondering, I am interested in investment banking, private equity, financial analyst, and analysis, I assume, and planning. All
Yeah.
right. And lots of comments in there with some really good advice. Um,
What are those saying?
First one is about thank you for your service, OP. Of course, you clearly have strong leadership and operational experience, but this reads like a military performance report and not a business resume. Um, a few actionable points in there,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Gonna.
yeah, I'll go through those as well. A few high-level thoughts. What are you targeting? It's very difficult to critique this without knowing your goals, operations,
Mm.
supply chain. We know, I think OP added later that the investment banking, private
Yeah.
equity, and yeah, but yeah, I have comment about that when I see the resume. I can't see any of those goals either in that resume. So yeah,
Okay.
the advice holds. What are you targeting? You can't really tell what your goal is. There's also translation gap that the commenter is saying.
Mhm.
Um, Bullets describe activity and not business impact. Um, yeah, what were all of these roles? You did service, increase the font, lower the spacing, very direct.
Yeah,
Um,
okay. Let's
yeah,
dive in.
what
Let's
do
just
we
dive
think?
into it.
That's everyone else. What do we think?
Yeah. Okay, let's move in this. Um, I open to your thoughts. So for those
Mhm.
watching who aren't aware, Mal helps me on the application work with clients, both in terms of editing and also in terms of resume building. So I'm Mal, very keen to hear your thoughts. I'm just going to verbal diarrhea this and just give everything that I see. Right. Firstly, formatting's revolting, right? There shouldn't be multiple boldnesses of lines. Why? Why? Just remove that one, basically. Remove that big fat bold line at the top. No need for it whatsoever.
Mm.
Next thing, standardize the format. So, for example, your university dates should be the same format as your military dates here. Ditto location, right? They should be the same thing. Location and dates should be formatted the same way for university and for professional experience. Typically, what we do is we format the university the same as the employer, and the Bachelor of Science Finance the same as the title, air freight coordinator. So make those parallel. So those are the same. Line spacing. This looks like it was written while you were on an airplane or something and being shot
Mhm.
at. Like, why? What? This is revolting formatting here. Fix the line spacing. All the line spacing should be consistent all the way through. Be absolutely militant, pun intended, about getting that line spacing accurate. Bullet points. Now, there's lots of specifics about this in the comments, but to give you an example, if you're focusing on finance, you should be adding as many dollar numbers as you can to this resume. For example, if you are handling shipments, do you have like a budget for this? Can you value those shipments? Can you say 3,000 high priority shipments worth $3 million per month, for example? Maybe for the bottlenecks, cut average turnaround time by 50%. What does that translate to in terms of dollars?
Mhm.
So start reframing this towards the industry that you're aiming for. To be honest, adding dollar numbers is good regardless of industry, but especially important for finance. So add the finance, flavor to it. Another idea. So those are values of like sort of transactional values, for example, shipments, but also values of assets. So, for example, if OP was overseeing the use of assets, for example, ships, airplanes, whatever, you can quantify the value of those assets as well. That
Mhm.
helps. So, for example, to protect the aircrew, equipment, and ship down here, or ship worth, I don't know, $500 million. So
Mhm.
assets have a value and processes have a value as well. Really, really maximize the dollar numbers that you're including in the resume. Um, any thoughts from you? I mean, I kind of, as I say, a bit of verbal diarrhea there, but covers the main things. What are you thinking?
I think it's a bit dry. I read it and it doesn't really tell me again, like you said, I don't know
Boring.
what industry, OP is intending to go into. It just reads very dry. There's no real impact that I can see. It's just a bunch of bullet points cobbled together, in
Mm.
which I did this, I led this, tracked this, executed this, but I'm not really seeing the leadership angle or uh,
Mm.
any kind of how we structure a bullet point with we do what the context was, the action was, and the impact was in an MBA resume, and I'm not seeing that here at all.
Right. So to give an example of what Mal's talking about here, led an 8-sailor team, maintaining 12 work centers and shared spaces, passing all safety facilities inspections with no major discrepancies, comma, 6 team members promoted within 1 year under my leadership.
Mhm.
flesh this out. Show what has resulted from your leadership. There's plenty of other examples here. Led 15 junior sailors through rigorous 3-month qualification pipeline, achieving 100% on-time certification aboard. That's not bad. But like, yeah, some great color there would be like, how did you achieve this certification? So led 15 sailors through rigorous 3-month pipeline, implemented weekly feedback program resulting in 100% on-time certification. So fleshing out these leadership points to show the reader who's not in your industry what you really did during that time, and make them feel like you've got kind of leadership in your DNA, which doesn't come through right now. That's fair. Any other comments?
Same for volunteer experience as well. If you see contributed, first of all, the structuring of that, it would be great to have those divided into their own little sections like you've done for the professional experience, because volunteer experience, it looks quite meaty. It's good. So contributed 70+ hours reading to military children, serving lunches, but for what? I want to see purpose there. I want to see some sort of military children for X, for an X cause, or for the same with the Navy Child and Youth Program, maybe a 1/2 line descriptor of what that program does for Navy.
I've got an idea. Maybe to flesh that one out as well. Contributed 70 hours of reading to military children. Maybe there's an element of like, what topics were you focused on? If it was something like financial literacy, it sounds like this is probably a bit younger, but whatever, financial literacy to military children, you start playing that investment banking theme, that finance theme a little bit more strongly.
Yeah, agreed. I also, if we come down to the additional information section, I see honors, I see certifications, skills. Is Microsoft Office a really important skill to?
Yeah, which we generally remove that, don't we?
Yeah, we generally do. We don't really. And Excel's part of Office.
Yeah. Well, exactly. It's often you're sort of devaluing yourself a little bit. It's assumed that you can use Excel. So if you're saying I can use Excel, it makes people think, if you're bragging about that, does that mean you're not very impressive? It's not a great look. It's sort of assumed. That said, if you could have like a VBA qualification with Excel or some specific certifications within it, that can be value add. So there's a slight nuance there. Also, this interest line could just be more interesting. Again, pun intended. Golfing with Son's a good start. Don't list the number of countries you've been to. Don't reduce a country to a number. That's a bit not very impressive. Coaching youth sports, like which sports, how often, what have you got out of that? Volunteering, again, just saying I volunteer, that has zero value. Volunteering for children of military to teach finance, I would argue that's already come up in the volunteering experience anyway. But for those that haven't got a volunteering experience section, then flesh it out in the additional information. One way or another, it has to be detailed. Okay. Look, a lot of sort of criticism there, I guess, but this is what OP asked for. I think the key here is, OP, go on mbaconsultant.com, start the resume guide course within that, and download the resume templates that we've got. All this formatting stuff that we've told you, that will all be handled with a good template. Go in, you can download it. That part of the course is free. That's my kind of overarching feedback here.
Yeah, same. It's a really good resource. You can just structure all of it really nicely. It gives you slots to put your info in. So you don't even have to worry.
That's my advice on that one. Okay, good. Nice first resume roast there.
And we used to do this in person, isn't that, Sam?
I used to do these at events. I used to go down to the sort of MBA tour type events and sit and roast people's resume in person. They would typically be a little bit more advanced than this, a little bit more, because at that point they'd be meeting the schools. So I'd be like critiquing the nuances of the bullet points, etc. But nice to do a high level one as well. So we have a bonus.
We do have a bonus. And this is an interesting one. Is the LinkedIn theater just a given for MBA students? Okay, a bit snarky there already. Question for everyone currently enrolled in an MBA program. Are the LinkedIn theatrics just a way of life at this point? I don't mean the general post. I don't mean the AI slop. I mean the looks like an incredible experience and great insight. Thanks so much for sharing. Comments that my distant friend leaves on her boyfriend's post. They live together. What's going on? She's not the only one. I've seen a bunch of these types of comments between people I know each other pre-MBA and they don't talk to each other like that. It's just weird. For co-workers or professional contacts, I get it. But then when it's someone close to you, it's odd. Am I nuts or is this the way it goes? What do you
Yeah,
think?
welcome to LinkedIn, right? There's all sorts of weird behavior. Look, to be constructive about this, let's dive in. So, first, short answer is yes, that's the way, but it's a little bit more nuanced than that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why is that the way? So, generally
Mm-hmm.
speaking, people who do well in MBA applications are quite active on LinkedIn. It's just a thing. Why? Well, if you're applying to MBAs, it's because you're taking your career seriously. And if you're taking your career seriously, you're probably taking your LinkedIn seriously because it's a
Mm-hmm.
reflection of your career. So it is one of the things that we do with clients is do a resume. After we've done the resume review and rebuilt the resume, we apply that to LinkedIn and rebuild their resume, their LinkedIn as well, because it really does matter. And schools do look at your resume, your LinkedIn, to be clear. They really do look at your LinkedIn. So it is important that it looks nice. But there's a difference between your LinkedIn looking nice and writing looks like an incredible experience on your partner's LinkedIn post, right? Look, the schools, they can identify LinkedIn bullshit as well as anybody, better than most. So that is not gaining traction. That is not helping. Nor is there's sort of a difference between using LinkedIn so that people stumble on your profile, which is the reason why people post these bullshit comments, versus having your LinkedIn look good when someone who already knows you comes to find you specifically. And that is the one we're targeting because that the business school are gonna look right. Going back to the last person, right? They're gonna say, "Oh, John Doe." Okay, I'm gonna go into LinkedIn and type John Doe, or they're gonna click the LinkedIn hyperlink there, and they're gonna find your profile specifically. They're not gonna go looking into your comments. What they're gonna look at is, does this work experience that's posted on LinkedIn match the resume that we've got? Are there any inconsistencies that could raise a pink flag? Does it look like they're taking their career seriously? Those are the kinds of questions they're asking. And that is important. But does it matter that you've posted on your boyfriend's post something like supportive? Like, schools don't care about that. And that's not
Mm-hmm.
helping one way or another. So, a couple of things to do to your LinkedIn profile. I'm saying don't feel the need to post AI slop on your partners, but there are some things you should do. Got a list for you. One, good bullet points for each role. Maybe not exactly the same bullet points as your resume because those are going to be too detailed on your resume, but you could put like a simplified version on your LinkedIn page. What I'm going to do real quick is open up my own LinkedIn and show my own LinkedIn profile and give examples of what I'm referring to. So, what are some of the things that you can do on your LinkedIn profile to make it look nice? One, bullet points, adding in some decent content about each role that you've been involved with. This is nice. Again, it doesn't have to be the same as your resume, but something consistent and similar is nice. For example, on my resume, I had this line: launched a new multi-asset sales and trading desk. That has been pretty much copy pasted directly to my LinkedIn, and it's consistent, and the dates are all aligned with my resume, and it looks nice. Another thing, the multimedia like video helps. So having things like links, if you're featured in something interesting, but maybe a company's promotion material or whatever, link to it. So I've put videos there, links to videos that I think are relevant. I've put a link to the De Beers video there from one of my internships I did, etc. Multimedia always looks good. Building on that, fill out all the images. Put an image for your face here, put an image of the background. Make sure these are not generic, what's the word? Like unfilled placeholders. Follow a few things, right? You don't have to have 17,000 followers, but it's helpful to follow some interesting like, what do I call, where are they? Here, following some interesting people, some interesting stuff, show any languages, any courses you've done, etc. Not a bad move to make your LinkedIn look stronger. So you're not nuts. That is the way it goes. It's not all bullshit. You can do it. You can do it well as well. Does that answer it?
Yeah, and I think even in terms of like engaging with people,
Yeah.
like you said, people can really tell when it's bullshit, when it's just empty, generic comments like, "Oh my God, thanks for your insight," or
Yeah.
you can tell when somebody's doing the LinkedIn
There are
influencer kind of
bots.
thing.
There are bots that do that
So
automatically as well. Nobody, not admissions, not your manager, not your colleague, is impressed by an AI generated comment. Absolute slop. Um,
if you are commenting, I think it needs to add value to the conversation that's being had.
right.
Like if you have actual insights to give or any kind of really like a good back and forth chat, that really works in terms of
Yeah.
engagement. But if
Yeah.
it's just empty, congratulatory, yeah, like it just doesn't
Doesn't add
look
any
good.
value.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's clear. Are we going to dive into the comments on this? I feel like we are
I
for
I
trouble
was going
here,
to
but
use the
let's have
word
a
in the
look.
first comment, but I stopped myself.
Don't even want to read that
When I
aloud.
said congratulatory, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not he's not wrong.
Yeah, it's performative in many ways. Yeah.
100%
What a great take
performative.
on
Recruiters
supply
actually
chain
do.
resilience.
Yeah. So I mean, most of this stuff is right, and it is funny to look at. But yeah, where I do draw the line is like if the schools will check your LinkedIn, so make sure that your profile is solid.
Yeah.
That's worth doing. Don't feel
Yeah.
the need to engage like this is rubbish.
Yeah.
All right, now, great stuff. See you again for Reddit roast next week.
Yes, I'll see you
Amazing.
then.
If you've
And yeah,
enjoyed
happy
today's
Friday.
roast, yeah, happy Friday. If you've enjoyed today's roast and you'd like to, you want to follow the page, we do these every week. We're up to 46 or something now. We're going to keep going. If you'd like to have your profile roasted or your resume roasted or whatever, DM us and we will do our best to include it in the roast. And if you're looking for an admissions consultant, Mal and I are taking on round one clients for next year. So that would be typically to start around April, May of 2026. Get in touch and we can get the ball moving on that. And yeah, have a great weekend.
All right, you too.
Awesome. See
See
ya.
ya.